Hi everyone, happy Christmas. I hope that you're all keeping well. Today in this video I'm going to be talking about my symptoms post Lemtrada treatment in comparison to my symptoms now, which is about 15 years after. It's estimated that 2.9 million people across the world are living with MS, and almost 1 million of those are people living in the US. Up to 300 people are diagnosed every day. So it's important now more than ever really to understand the treatments which are out there and what can help with the symptoms of MS and potentially halt people's MS progression. Being diagnosed with MS and living with MS is daunting enough in itself without having to navigate the catalogue of side effects that come with the disease-modifying treatments available. But I think it's so important for people to make an informed decision based on the information that's given and to be comfortable with their choice. This video is certainly not about making people feel like they've got to take a disease-modifying treatment. However, the options are there for people when they're diagnosed, and even later on into the years when maybe somebody hasn't had a treatment for their MS. The one thing that I can tell you is that permanent neurological damage can occur even in the earliest of stages with MS. So personally, I believe that it's really important to start treatment as early as possible to try and prevent your multiple sclerosis from progressing anymore. I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis in 2008 and my symptoms varied hugely from the moment that my symptoms came on to the point where I was diagnosed, and then they altered obviously after I started my treatment. I would say that my symptoms came on very gradually, and the kind of symptoms that I was experiencing very early on were numbness and tingling and kind of like loss of sensation over my body. However, those symptoms very quickly progressed into something much worse and over a very short period of time. So I was having very quick relapses within short spaces of time, and the more relapses I was having, the more my mobility would worsen and life was just becoming really difficult. So the kind of symptoms that I was progressing on to after that was loss of function and motor senses within my hands. I was finding it difficult to walk. I had the MS hug. I had Lemtrada syndrome. I experienced optic neuritis in my eye with vision loss. My fatigue was extreme. And my vertigo was even worse. So these are all the kinds of symptoms that I was experiencing pre-treatment. I feel a lot less worried about symptoms coming on just purely because they were so out of control when I was first diagnosed. And now I feel like there's a very controlled MS within my body rather than one which is very sporadic and would just crop up sort of every month or so. My symptoms have lessened so much, and now I am left with sort of residual numbness in my feet and also in my left hand. But I have never experienced the MS hug ever since that episode of having it, and I don't have the Lemtrada syndrome anymore. My numbness is definitely more controlled within my body, and I've never had a experience like the sensory symptom where I couldn't feel hot and cold. Was the treatment hard to go through? I mean, I wouldn't really say it was hard, but I would say that there were times where I felt very ill from the treatment, and I would have side effects that nobody really wants to go through. But I always say, like, you have to weigh up your options. Do I want to, like, looking back, do I want to feel how I felt all those years ago, and with the uncertainty of never knowing when a relapse was going to come up and having like less disability every time. No, I don't want that. I want to have a life which is more certain living with MS, and I feel like the treatment has given me stability back in my life, and it's also given me a bit more of life as well, because you know, who knows where I'd have been. Who, honestly, I just feel like I think that my progression would have only got worse, and I honestly don't think that I would be in the place where I am at the moment. You know, it's not to say that I don't have symptoms of MS anymore, because I do. I still get fatigue, I still have tingling in my legs, and I still have vertigo, but it is nothing compared to what I went through and what I had before treatment. And I personally think that if you're diagnosed with MS, or you're having the dilemma at the moment of whether you decide to go on to disease modifying drugs or not, then for me personally, I would make the decision to go on them just because of my experience of them. If you're still unsure and you're still undecided, maybe you can do things like track your MS on a daily and monthly basis to see where it's going. Are there any changes with you, and anything that you're experiencing that you are not enjoying? And you can talk to your healthcare team or your MS specialist, and they can hopefully give you options to what might suit you as a treatment. MS is a lifelong illness, so finding a specialist that can work with you and can fit in with your requirements and what you're feeling and what you need is really important as well. I know that all throughout the time when I was on my trial, I had the best MS nurses and doctors that I could wish for, and it made my journey so much more comfortable for me. So I think that that is definitely a thing to look into. I wanted to share this today because there are people still going through the dilemma of what they're going to do, and not really maybe understanding the path forward for these disease modifying therapies, and they might not work for everybody. But again, I think speaking with your MS specialist and them helping you and you helping them to decide what it is what you want to do will make the journey a lot more comfortable. If anybody has any questions regarding my Lemtrada treatment, if you're maybe looking to go on to that, please feel free to ask me anything that you want. Take care, everybody, and I will see you soon.